Tricky dicky master plans, words for the herds and the flocks of the birds that never endeavor to become clever, whatever. I'm Oliver Perrin for Semiagog. In this clip, we'll have a look at some very questionable details that have emerged about Ilhan Noor Saeed, also known as Ilhan Omar. More specifically, about the people closest to her. For those of you who've never heard of Ilhan and the controversy that surrounds her, including allegations she married her own brother in furtherance of immigration fraud, I encourage you to have a look at the 3 earlier videos I've posted. But for those of you already familiar with the ugly truth that appears to be hidden behind her pretty little face, we've got lots of new information to share with you. But first, I want to thank the many Somalis with whom I've communicated. The Americans who, like me, are disgusted by the stream of evidence coming to light that seems to confirm Ilhan Omar's crass opportunism and corruption. I especially wish to thank my anonymous Somali source, who was willing to provide information and translations, despite the very real personal risks that this entails. This source has asked to be identified only by the name Libach Sankatabte. So, let's start with the person Ilhan Omar refers to as her husband in her faith tradition.
Assalamu alaikum.
Ahmed Khursi. According to my source, Khursi has the nickname Southside Khursi and is notorious among Somalis for his ties to criminal elements and gangs in the Cedar Riverside community. While this is impossible to confirm using only the records and sources that are publicly available to us, this claim shouldn't be dismissed out of hand. As we can see here, Khursi used to own a smoking business, one of those places where you can go to smoke the water pipes that are also called nargile or shisha. His establishment was called Urban Shisha and was located in Columbia Heights. This listing provided by the Minnesota Secretary of State clearly shows Ahmed Khursi as the owner, as does his own personal LinkedIn page, which we can see here. According to sources, this business was the subject of several criminal investigations. Apparently, it was forced to shut down in 2014 after local residents, city officials, and police had had enough of the criminal activity occurring in the establishment. This seems to have included assault, robbery, and even a drive-by shooting. All we have to do is look at this archival record of a 2014 city council meeting in Columbia Heights to confirm that these things really were going on. We can also see that a police sergeant who tried to simply walk in to Urban Shisha was at first prevented from doing so by private armed guards. According to my source, the word on the street is that these guards were actually thugs and gang members working for Ahmed Khursi. Remember, people, the owner of the business we're talking about is the husband, or one of the husbands anyway, of a woman who is currently running for public office in Minnesota, and the election is just a couple of weeks away. Some might argue that it's not fair to associate Ilhan Omar with crime simply because there's evidence that she engaged in bigamy and immigration fraud, and apparently lied about it afterwards. Some might say we can't reasonably associate her with thugs and violence just because her husband ran a shady water pipe joint, known in the surrounding community to be a viper's nest of crime. And really, who cares if her husband employed armed security that tried to keep a working cop from entering the place? Okay, you want more? Here's some more, courtesy of Libach Sankatabte. Those of you who've seen my previous videos will remember Guhad Hashi. According to a story first reported on by Preya Samsundar at Alpha News, he's the guy that Ilhan's campaign brought in to threaten members of the Somali community, to keep them quiet about Ilhan's alleged criminal conduct. Because of the grotesque liberal bias in the media, this story hasn't gotten anything like the attention it deserves. But all of that's now changing, as it becomes more and more difficult for Ilhan and her campaign team to keep their apparent corruption hidden. My source confirms what Samsundar previously reported. According to the information provided to me, Guhad Hashi is an Ohio resident who was brought to Minnesota by Team Ilhan solely to pressure the Somali community. According to news reports, and we can see an example here, our friend Guhad Hashi, identified here as Guhad H. Saeed, was arrested in Ohio in 2015 and charged with felonious assault. So let's have a look at the media release provided by the Columbus Police at the time. On Thursday, July 3rd, 2015, at approximately 3:10 a.m., officers and medics were dispatched to an apartment based on a report of a person who was stabbed. Upon arrival, officers found the victim suffering from multiple cuts and lacerations. The victim was transported to the hospital in stable condition. Officers also found 2 additional victims at the scene, who also sustained various wounds from being stabbed with a knife. The victims identified the suspect, remember that's apparently Guhad Hashi, folks, and indicated the incident occurred as a result of a disagreement and fight between the suspect and the victims. The suspect was arrested at the scene. Now, I haven't been able to find evidence of a conviction yet, but there is a booking photo from the arrest, which we can see here. In any case, I fail to see why this information about Guhad Hashi shouldn't raise some very serious questions about Ilhan Omar's judgment, or even about the lawfulness of her activities. Before you ask me why I would say something like this, I should point out that this character, Guhad Hashi, responsible apparently for stabbing 3 people, is a member of Ilhan Omar's campaign team. Don't believe me? Here he is with Ilhan.
مصيري خيامة مساقير تشالين با تدبرسي ما إحبا ما كل شيء صبالك كعروسة صحيبة مسوقانا مانيو صعبية دربان با دربان با
And here's a photo of him with Ahmed Khursi. Remember him? One of Ilhan's 2 husbands? Still don't believe he's a member of her team? Not only do we have the video and photos of him at Ilhan Omar's primary victory gathering that I've shown in previous videos, we've also got him here, second from the right, in a photo of the Ilhan Omar campaign team. And here he is thanking all the Team Ilhan people he worked with in the primary. And here he is doing the same thing again. Still don't believe me? Here he is going door to door to promote the candidate he directly works for, Ilhan Omar. I don't know about you, but if I were a Somali, I'm not sure I would be happy to see this guy knocking on my door. It's important that you realize what we're dealing with when it comes to knife attacks. Here's a video of a knife attack. It's one I found that isn't too bad. I don't want to disturb our viewers with footage that is too graphic. But if you want to get a clear picture of exactly what kind of person Guhad Hashi appears to be, just search for knife attacks on YouTube. If you do so, make sure there are no children around. And be prepared to see some really horrifying, some really terrifying things. Is Ilhan Omar trying to use that kind of horror, that kind of terror, to keep members of her own community quiet? Perhaps that's exactly why she's allegedly using him as muscle to intimidate those who might otherwise speak out against her. Apparently, Guhad Hashi doesn't just use knives. According to my source, several Somalis have heard him bragging about having pistol-whipped people. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically beating people in the face with a heavy steel handgun. It usually leads to skull fractures, broken cheekbones, and things like bloody teeth all over the floor. I wonder what Ilhan Omar will have to say about the fact that the guy she sends out to knock on the doors of everyday Somali citizens is reported to have stabbed 3 people. Do any of the other candidates have people like this on their campaign teams? This isn't just speculation about intimidation. Not long ago, Preya Samsundar posted a video showing people who work for Ilhan doing their best at damage control, trying to convince members of the Somali community to stay quiet. But she gave summaries of what was discussed in the video. She didn't provide a full translation. Thanks to the efforts of concerned Somalis, we now have a full English translation of what they were saying at the time. And guess who's holding the camera for this video? It seems to be Guhad Hashi. Given that he's the one who posted or live streamed the video, as we can see here, it seems clear that he's the one behind the camera. Let's get back to that video. And remember, these apparent crooks are so shameless that they will use the excuse of standing up for the Somali community in order to justify what appears to be their exploitation of that very community. Listen to what they're all saying and judge for yourself.
waxaan aad ugu faraxsanahay caawa inaan isku imaanay I endorsed and put it together hadda wixii laga dambeeyana Ilhan waa xildhibaanada ugu weyn Minnesota 60p whether you like or you don't like yes aad iska dhiga ma yartii hadii la fiiriyo maartay Soomaalinimada yaan iloobin gaaladana keena fiirinaysaa wixii personalkeeda ah gaaladan oo dhan hadda ninkan weyn oo orday waa aragtay meeqna uu aragtay oo hadda kaanaysa marka waa inaan ku fikirnaa waxa xun aan dhignaa qabiil aan iska dhignaa Soomaalinimadii walaaltinimadii yaan iloobin hore ha loo socdo
Assalamu alaikum hal mid aan sheegay waa very important xaasidka hal iska qabto Somali community dadka iskool keenay hal iska qabto banaanka hal iska dhigo Somali horaa u socdo midowga Somali midnimada ka tagay Soomaaliyeed gabadha walaashiina maanta waa u jeedaan alxamdulillah kursigeeda waa u socotaa banaanka way hal midowga Soomaaliya midnimada ka tagay
Thank you. If you're an American Somali, I encourage you to embrace the ideals of this country, to embrace your power as a voter, to take action to prevent Ilhan from getting into office. Do you really want to enable her? Do you really want to make it easy for her to spread her alleged lies and apparent corruption here in the US? If you're a Somali who is truly concerned about making your voice heard, about claiming your place in American society, then you should be willing to say no to Ilhan Omar and her bullshit. You should be willing to say no to Ahmed Khursi and his smoky viper dens. You should be willing to say no to threatening thugs who are known to have stabbed people and who brag about pistol whipping others. People who are so grotesquely hungry for power that they appear to be willing to intimidate their own community. The best way to say no to all of these people is with your vote on November 8th. Remember, what you've seen here isn't everything. I've posted 3 previous videos discussing all sorts of other things that seem to show how Ilhan Omar is deeply corrupt. The videos I've posted, the many news articles that have been published, they reveal a steaming pile of evidence that suggests corruption, lying, and even violent intimidation. When it comes to corruption, don't ever forget that for every cockroach you see, there are literally hundreds or thousands more swarming behind the cabinets and beneath the floors. Wake up, people. Recognize that you yourselves, have the power to say no to all of this in the most meaningful way. All you have to do is let your voice be heard on Election Day. I'm Oliver Perrin for Semiagog. Thanks for watching. Over and out.
Books, brands, buckled bands, tricky dicky master plans, words for the herds and the flocks of the birds that never endeavor to become clever, whatever, but never try, never fly, and never ever never knew why.